Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The U.S. Market Update with Money FM 89.3.
Good morning. Welcome to the U.S. Markets Wrap with me, Huang. We've got a bit of a pullback last night. U.S. stocks down as investors weigh the latest developments on the trade front, and that kicks off the seasonally poor month for equities of the month of September. We also have rising yields worrying investors. Let's take a look at the benchmarks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.6%, around 250 points. The S&P 500 lost 0.7%, and we have the Nasdaq Composite, the biggest loser, dropping 0.8%. So investors taking some profits off the table. Let's check in now with Fabian Yip. She is the market analyst for IG. Good morning, Fabian. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great having you on. So we've got a bit of a mixed picture of sorts because in the regular session, we saw some tech names under pressure. And then in the after-hours trading, we had some tech names going up. So let's start first with the regular session. So let's walk through what happened here. We've got some profit taking that saw the likes of NVIDIA down about 2%. And even big tech names like Amazon and Apple lost about 1%. Walk us through what's happening here with the latest market action.
That's right. We all knew that September was going to be quite volatile. Looking at the historical data, it has been the worst month for U.S. equities on average in the past 50 years. And I think yesterday's session was a perfect demonstration of volatility and what September could be like for us. Basically, what happened yesterday, it was a bit of a mix of different things that happening. In Europe, we did see there was a confidence vote in France that's going to happen sometime in the next few days. And there was also a surge in the UK gilts, 30-year yields to a 27-year high. So that kind of reminded people of how heavily indebted some of these developed countries are. And let's not forget, in the U.S., we will also be seeing a deadline on the federal budget by the end of the month. So people just kind of realize, actually, we're having a bit of a problem with the deficit right here, that countries are heavily debted, and that's why the long-end yields saw a surge and would have been playing on performance of stocks that are more sensitive to yield. So like you said, the Nasdaq, which is very much tech-focused, these companies are a bit more sensitive to yield movements, and we did see a decline in their performance. That was one of the key things that was happening during the regular session, and that's why we are also seeing profit taking, as you mentioned, on some of the higher valuation stocks like NVIDIA. They have done pretty well for investors earlier this year. So after the earnings result, people are quite happy to take some chips off the table.
Yep, any excuse to take profit seems to be happening right now. All right, let's take a look at what's happening in the after-hours trading, where we got a bit of a boost for the likes of Apple and Google as well because of a court ruling. Walk us through what's happening here.
Sure. So I think everyone's aware that these giant tech companies have been going through a series of legal actions, government suing these companies for antitrust basis. And what happened yesterday was a U.S. district judge basically ruled that Google does not have to divest from its Chrome browser, which was one of the major risks for the company because they do use this browser to implement a lot of their strategies, especially on the growth in AI theme. So this is a big win for Google. And the other thing is that because the court has also ruled that Google does not have to be restricted to make payments to third parties for default browser placement. So if you think about this, Apple has been using Google as a default browser in a search. This is actually benefiting both companies, which is why we saw share prices rally in the after-hour session.
Yeah, Apple up around 3%, Alphabet up around 8% in extended trading. So that's a bit of a boost here. All right, let's take a look at some of the data coming through overnight. And we had the ISM manufacturing numbers come through at 48.7. That slightly misses the consensus forecast of 49. So I suppose under 50 is still in contraction territory. What does this tell you about where things are going for the U.S. economy?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the manufacturing activities have been contracting for 6 consecutive months. As you mentioned, the number below 50 indicates a contraction. The key theme we're seeing here is basically tariff uncertainty have definitely played on U.S. manufacturing activities, have driven a weaker demand. But there is a bit of a good news on raw materials, as we saw that the number has expanded a little bit, indicating a deceleration in the slowdown as well as the inflation of prices for raw materials. So this is a bit of a good news. If we also look at another component within the manufacturing data set, we're seeing the employment index shows continued contraction in the hiring within this industry. But the good news is that we're also not seeing a very large kind of redundancy that's happening within the industry. So this could set a tone for the rest of the week, where we'll be expecting a bunch of job data being revealed.
Yeah, so you point out how tariffs are perhaps being felt in the latest ISM manufacturing numbers. To what point do you think it might be showing up in the latest jobs data that's going to be coming up on the later part of this week?
So I think the job data that we'll be seeing this week will indicate that the labor market continues to cool down, but we do not expect unemployment rates to shoot up drastically. There might be a slight increase in unemployment rate. If we look at the market consensus right now, as for the non-farm payrolls that will be coming in on Friday, the market is expecting roughly 75,000 jobs to be added. So this is kind of similar level as what we saw in July. But I think it's going to be pretty interesting because it's actually the first non-farm payroll survey release after Trump has dismissed the previous Bureau of Labor Statistics chief. So whether the sampling methodology will be slightly changed or whether there will be a drastic revision in previous month's number is something that we're also watching.
All right. Also worth watching is the earnings coming out this week. We've got the likes of Broadcom and Salesforce. And Broadcom, of course, coming off the back of NVIDIA's numbers recently, which was a bit of a mixed bag. It beat both the top and bottom lines, but had a disappointing forecast. So what are you watching out for this time around in this week's earnings?
Sure. So let's talk about Broadcom. As you mentioned, NVIDIA has seen a bit of a volatility even after generating pretty decent numbers for its earnings. And the same also ties in with the other chip companies. You see Qualcomm, you see AMD. They are all reporting pretty decent numbers, but the stock price has not been doing very well for them after the results. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting event for Broadcom as we see that the stock has done pretty well this year, whether there will be more profit-taking actions after reporting a decent report card is something that we're watching. The other thing that we need to pay attention is obviously the demands on AI-related products and whether the data center-related revenue would see a continuous surge. As for Salesforce, the software company hasn't been doing too well this year, down over 20% year to date. The expectation for the company would be delivering growth of around 9%. The key focus is whether the marketing and commerce cloud could weather the corporate environment where budget cuts have been seen. And being a late starter to the AI party, whether they are picking up on their AI strategy is also something that we're watching.
All right, we'll keep it there for today, Fabian. We've been in conversation with Fabian Ip. She is the market analyst for IG, helping us to break down the latest market session, where we had a bit of a profit-taking session going on, but we did see a bit of a bounce in the after-hours tradings with some of the names like Google and Apple. Fabian, thanks so much for your time today and also for your insights.
Thank you.
All right, we'll catch up again soon. Stay at Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.